It looks good in S1. Roger. ACS arm switch is on. Okay, Victor. Landing rocket arm switch is on. Here comes the throttle. Circuit breakers in. We have separation. Roger. Inboard and outboards are on. We're coming forward with the side stick. All looks good. Roger. I've got a blowout. Damper 3. Get your pitch to 0. Pitch is out. I can't hold altitude. Direction. Alpha hold is off. Prep selectors emergency. Flight comm. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. Steve Austin will be that man. Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
All right. Jeff here at Stop the Pirate, stopblogspot.com. Let me pull that down there a little bit. So assume the following to all my fellow United States American bonded economic debt slaves. The United States is bankrupt and has been since 1933. The U.S. went off the gold standard in 1933, and the U.S. went off the silver standard in 1964. Remember? That's when all the coins were debased for cheaper metals like copper and nickel. Therefore, the United States has no gold or silver backing for currency and daily operations as required by the Constitution. So, these Illuminati debt notes with the pyramid and the all-seeing-eye, most people go through life and they don't even they don't even wonder what that is. Just kind of a neat Annuit Coeptus Novus Ordo Seclorum, and that's Latin. Well, who do you know that uses the Latin language still to this day? The Pope, the Vatican. But nobody will tell you that. And that symbol is all over Catholic churches, all over Jesuit churches. This guy named Adam Weishaupt, who apparently engineered the whole Illuminati plan to take over the world using 3 world wars. He was a Jesuit priest in Ingolstadt, Germany. So in 1933, when they got the Federal Reserve System enacted it into legislation at night on December 24th, the night Christmas Eve, with like 2 or 3 congressmen. That was it. And what this translated mean, Annuit Coeptus means our, this could be off a little bit, our enterprise is crowned with success. So their New World Order, 1776, in Roman numerals, there's like 72 different, there's so many different things on here. There's a little, there's a little spider on here somewhere, or a little owl, I forget which, in the left-hand corner. Anyway, getting back to it. So what's left? The United States is bankrupt. They don't have any money. And always remember, they went to the creditors of last resort, which is the international bankers, which is the Illuminati bankers, which is ultimately the Vatican Bank and a consortium of Swiss banks. All of this probably run out of Switzerland. If you ever wonder why the Pope has Swiss guards surrounding him at the Vatican at all times, it's very interesting because Switzerland was set up by the Knights Templars in, I think, 1199, and they control, that's where the headquarters of the Bank of International Settlements, I think the World Bank, the Universal Postal Union, which runs the whole world basically, because they can't run it without a post office, And the world headquarters of Freemasonry are all right there, and I think it's Bern, Switzerland. But anyway, and those are the Knights Templars, who through their crusades stole all the gold of the world, basically, the Middle East and Egypt and all that stuff. And that's what they do. They conduct wars, and they're the people that are financing. They're paying for what's called the U.S. Army. The United States Army gets paid in Federal Reserve notes. So creditors control. So who's controlling the United States Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, all that good stuff? They're the military for the New World Order. They foment wars, they traffic in human weakness, and they they do false flag operations like 9/11, Oklahoma City, all these false flags to not only terrorize people and get them into what's called what is it when you're the soldiers come back and they're like shell shocked. But anyway, I mean, they do that on a mass scale with all of humanity to enslave them and to traffic them and to make them worship this stuff, which is worthless piece of paper, really. It costs just as much. I don't have anything bigger right now, but it costs just as much to print a 5 as it does $1. It's like, and the whole thing with the IRS, I think they don't even really need it, but it's just there to keep the slaves in line. The United States of America, the District of Columbia, is a slave management company. They give you the illusion that your votes count and things like that, but they don't. The only thing they're there for is to make laws. They're lawmakers. And the more codes and statutes they have on the books, the more money they can suck out of you. Because every statute and code on the book, what they call laws, has a monetary value to it. I've gone over this many times. Murder is $4 million, whatever, and they get you into a default judgment when you go into court, because what they're doing is they're asking you to pay the debt. Do you understand the charge? Because you're being charged, because there's a Sustake trust account set up at your birth with unlimited amount of credit, and they charge you, and they trick you into being the surety for the debt entity, and which is your name in all capital letters, and they're charging that entity, but you're acting as a surety. When they go in and say, "Are you John Smith?" and you go, "What's your name?" and they go, "John Smith." "John, do you understand the charges against you?" They're not asking you if you speak English. They're asking you if you stand under the charge. Will you accept the charge? And you say, "Yes, I understand the charge." And how do you plead? Guilty or non-guilty? Well, you can't prove a negative, so how can you be not guilty? And you can't plead innocent. That's another mind fuck programming they put into everybody. Excuse my language. Is you're innocent until proven guilty in America. I thought you was innocent. No, you're guilty or you're not guilty. Which is gilded, comes from the word gilded, which means you're going to pay or you're not going to pay. So you just had told the judge, "I understand the charge. Yes, I'm responsible for the charge you're charging me. I'm the surety for the straw man corporation, for the trust account. I understand the charge, absolutely." And then he says, "Well, are you going to pay the charge? How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?" You go, "Well, I'm not guilty." So now you say, I'm not guilty." So now you're in dishonor, you're in contempt of court, and there's no possible way you can win. Because the judge ultimately makes the rules. The Freemason in the black robe, they run it all. Knights Templars run the Freemasons, and they probably run the Jesuits in the Vatican too. That's just my theory. They run all the big corporations, all the big countries, and they're all just at the top, sitting there perched upon us, sucking on us, and creating wars and things. There's no reason to have wars. It's just to cull the herd. But anyway, that being said, getting back to the original thing I was talking about here. So the United States doesn't have any money. They really don't have any assets except you and me. We've pledged all our assets to them over our lifetime, all of our labor, and that's what the W-2 or the W-4 is. You're gifting all of your labor to a bankrupt corporation, which is a crown corporation run out of the Crown, which is the City of London in England. It's like its own city-state. It's the city-states that rule the world. The Crown, and I think it's all run out of Switzerland myself, but who knows? It's run militarily through the District of Columbia, financially through the City of London, and they run the church scam out of the Vatican. So what assets are left? So how does the United States finance its daily operation? The only assets left is the people. In the government's own language, it is called the good faith and credit of the American people. Well, what is the good faith and the credit based on? Look at the Senate Resolution number 62. All property belongs to the state, and you are now a mere user of the property. Look up the word usufruct when you get a chance in a legal dictionary. In their own words, you allegedly have a so-called ownership by the so-called virtue of a bankrupt government. But how did this take place? Where did the U.S. government find the faith? And the solution was to collateralize the people for the credit by getting the people to believe and have faith. So that's basically it right there in a nutshell. It's a con job, all up one side and down another. But, I mean, there's certain aspects you have to look at. There's a lot of idiots in the world, and you kind of have to manage the idiots. But there's creditors and there's debtors. And my point is getting people to become a creditor instead of a debtor, which means taking responsibility for things in your life, taking control of your strawman debt corporation, and knowing how to run your commercial affairs. It's capable. It's definitely doable. It's something that can be done. So anyway, by registering all the U.S. citizens and the Americans into international commerce and selling bonds on them, the person becomes a surety on the bonds or the pledge or the faith to build the credit of the United States. The asset bonded, the personal collateral, is the energy or the future labor of the people, which is payable at some undetermined future time. Thus the people become the utility for the transmission of the energy, which is your labor and intellectual property over time. When a baby is born in the United States, the birth certificate is registered with the Bureau of Vital Statistics in the state of the birth. The key word here is registered, as in gifted with a certificate that is given by the parents to the child to the virtue of the government, and then registered in international commerce through the Department of Human Resources. We are all human resources. Read Executive Order 13037, Section 2B. William Jefferson Clinton filed with the Office of the Federal Register, 8:45 a.m., March 5th, 1997. Now you know that what a human resource is. We are energy and intellect are resource, meaning taking from the source, i.e. you, and source to the something else, i.e. the U.S. government monetary system of good faith, which is belief and credit. The baby becomes a surety whose energy is due at some future date, and that's when you die or they kill you. When the birth certificate is registered in the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Department of Treasury issues a bond on the birth certificate, and the bond is sold as securities exchange as a derivative, meaning a derivation of the name in all capital letters. See Black's 6th edition dictionary, and bought by the Federal Reserve Bank through the Deposit Trust Corporation, aka the DTC, at 55 Water Street in New York City, about 2 blocks down the street from the Fed. The DTC, the Depository Trust Corporation, is a high-rise office building, and the sign on the front reads the Tower of Power. So, you've seen the tower, right? Remember the Lord of the Rings and the energy transfer towers of the Matrix? When the birth certificate is registered, a separate legal entity is created, a mirror image. And that's how these people operate. They operate in a mirror image and upside down. That's why they put the Washington Monument over a reflecting pond, because that's where they operate, in the reflection pond. very esoteric and very occultic type, lesser magic, I guess I would call it. And you know what? If you study this stuff for long enough, you'll see this information has been passed down for thousands of years. This didn't just come up with this stuff. The Vatican holds all the world's most important information, old books and dictionaries, not dictionaries, but whatever. And they slave you with the language. So anyway, when the birth certificate is registered, a separate legal entity is created, a mirror image or the real flesh and blood. This separate entity also, or alter ego, is called the straw man. Remember the straw man with no brain in The Wizard of Oz? And the straw man and the tin man, which stands for tax identification number, and the lion with no courage, because that represents the American people. The straw man is the accommodation party of the UCC 3-415. The name is credit. See Black's 6th edition, accommodation party and straw man. Therefore, the right or the use has been separated from the title or deed. The straw man holds the title, and he or it belongs to the government client who brought the bond / title. And the flesh and blood man is the only naked possession with the limited right to use the thing, like his body or his alleged possessions and land, which now become usury of another title / property. When the straw man violates some rule or statute, for instance a traffic ticket, the flesh and blood man must appear at the arraignment and admit the straw man's name, which is the credit, and then pay its debt to the society, which is the energy, on the surety that is due and payable by the flesh and blood man who is in use of the straw man. The flesh and blood man is the offender. Through the improper use of the straw man, an offender is on the offensive team until he screws up and goes on the defensive when the defendant with the defendant and loses. That's interesting because when you do get a traffic ticket, there's a 3-day right of rescission. So if you take your ticket, it'll usually say on the ticket, and they've changed it since I've come out with this and I started talking about this, but it'll usually say the officer will say you're not pleading guilty, you're not admitting guilt, you're just saying you're going to appear. It's usually 30 or 45 days later. So, and then you sign it. But once after the 3 days, you go from being an offender to a defender. But what you should do is go down there the next day to the courthouse and actually speak to the clerk of the court and bring a couple of friends with you and have them witness you saying, hey, I just got this this ticket yesterday and I'd like to see the judge. And 9 out of 10 times they'll go, well, you can't see the judge right now. Well, you go, well, it said appear on or before, so this is before, so I'm appearing. And then there's, you could do a couple heavy-duty affidavits, send them to the court, and that should take care of it legally, but they don't always follow their own laws and rules, and people have gotten so dumbed down that they don't even know what they're doing. They're just going along with the program so they can get their Federal Reserve notes at the end of the week and buy their McDonald's hamburgers and Cokes and shit. So I'm not going to go too deep into this right now because this is going to be kind of a long-winded video, but I just wanted to get this out there because a lot of people don't know this information. I wanted to get out there. Go to my blog, stopthepirates.blogspot.com, and check out all the information. Thank you for listening today. Have a great day. Thank you very much.